If you're watching this video, it's because you're thinking about moving to Alaska. And if you're thinking about moving to Alaska, I'm sure another thing you're wanting to do is make sure you move up here without any regrets. So in today's video, I'm going to be talking about all of the things you need to consider if you're looking at moving up here. So yeah, this is going to be the 5 things you need to consider when moving to Alaska if you don't want to have any regrets. So we'll jump into that in just a minute. Real quick, if I haven't said so already, my name's Jamin. I'm a local realtor here in South Central Alaska. And also, if you haven't liked this video, please do it. And also subscribe to the channel so you can receive more videos like this in the future. Now, without further ado, let's go and jump into today's video in which we talk about the 5 things you need to consider when you're moving to Alaska. Number 1, and this is going to sound like a no-dur kind of observation, but it's cold up here in Alaska. Now, the one thing I would point out is it's not nearly as cold in South Central or Kenai, southeastern Alaska, as it is as you get further north in places like Fairbanks, Barrow, places like that. Once you get further into the interior, it's going to get pretty cold. South Central, usually about -10, -20, couple weeks out of the year, and that's about it. You go further up and yeah, -50, -60 is going to be, you're going to have to do that a lot more. But it's still going to be pretty cold when you're moving up here to Alaska. If you're coming from somewhere like Michigan, Wisconsin, places like that, realistically, it's probably going to be colder there than it's going to be in Alaska, at least in South Central. So that is number 1 thing you really need to think about. Number 2, it's going to be pretty isolated up here. So something that doesn't get a whole lot of attention, you need to take a look at Alaska and where it sits on the map. And we are way the heck up here from the rest of the lower 48. We are closer to Russia, it seems like, than we are to the rest of the continental United States. And yeah, we are pretty high up here. For that reason, it's going to feel pretty isolated, which is going to impact us in a couple ways. Number 1, shipping stuff up here is going to be expensive. So cost of food, items like that, it's going to be kind of expensive just because we have a longer supply chain to get stuff up here. Number 2, when you're looking to go and do stuff, traveling is going to be, you're always going to have more effort in traveling than people in the lower 48. You're just going to have to accept that as a part and parcel of life. So that's number 2. It's going to be more isolated. Number 3, and this is kind of a pet peeve of mine, but do not think you're going to come up here and be able to use money from the permanent fund dividend to make up for any dumb mistakes that you've made. And the reason I come down so hard on this is because I see a lot of videos out there, places you can live for free, Alaska will pay for you to live up here. Don't get too excited. The permanent fund dividend is a dividend that's kind of based off of the revenue from oil for the state. And a couple things. Number 1, if you're not watching in DC, oil is definitely not something that's being highly promoted by this administration. So not really seeing that, not seeing a whole lot of income as far as that goes. We can definitely do a whole video just on the permanent fund dividend, but anybody that's out there telling you that they're going to pay for you to live in Alaska and you're going to get all this money, it's clickbait, okay? Just don't really treat it like it's a second income. Usually, the time I've been up here, it's been about $700 to maybe $1,200. It's definitely not going to be the big end-all be-all for moving up here. So don't make some good financial decisions. Just assume the permanent fund dividend isn't even in the equation when you're making those plans, and it's just going to be a nice little bonus when you get up here. So that's the best advice I can probably give you to make sure you don't make mistakes that you're going to regret later. Let's take a quick break here. If you haven't checked out my Instagram page yet, you definitely should. The link for that is going to be down below, and it kind of just shows you what it's like selling real estate and living up here on the last frontier. And I do have a lot of pictures from hiking and working with great people, most of which who I've met through YouTube, who have made the jump and decided to move up here. So definitely go check that out. Interact with me on that platform. I'm usually pretty good on interacting with the DM, so definitely feel free to reach out to me there. Now, without further ado, let's get to the last 2 tips I would give to you of things you need to consider as you're planning on moving up here. Now, the next point is going to be that Alaska is a good place to live, but it's not Mayberry. And what I mean by that is you need to go check out the crime rate for Alaska. So I'm going to do a video more geared specifically to this and really dissecting the crime a little bit more. But what we're seeing is that the crime rate in Alaska is high. Now, that being said though, most of the crime is going to be kind of in the south central area, and it's a pretty big state. Also, crime rate is not the same thing as overall crimes in the area. Now, this is important because Alaska is a really small state, okay? There are some cities who have more people in their suburbs than Alaska has as an entire state, okay? It's just over, like, I think it's 730-odd thousand people who live up here. So you get one person who's in malcontent doing stuff, and it's gonna be essentially doing the work of 10 or 20 people in the lower 48, just because, you know, the numbers are so low, so the rates are gonna be going off the charts. So just make sure that you're well aware of the areas that you're looking at. I'm not going to tell you what's a good area or bad area. You need to go do the research on sites like APD or whatever the website is or whatever the area is that you're looking to move into. The police department's crime map in that area, just to make sure you're kind of comfortable with what's going on, and just make sure you kind of find the flavor of whatever crime you're into. Number 5 is that it definitely does get dark here during the wintertime, and it definitely does stay bright during the summer. So some people do just fine with the seasonal changes. Myself, not so much. It's not my favorite, but that being said, I do find ways to work around it to make sure this not a deal killer for me. So get some really dark blinds during the summertime to make sure you can get some sleep and get some melatonin, whatever you have to do to get to sleep. And during the wintertime, it's going to be dark. There's going to be some times in South Central where you'll get, I think it's 3-4 hours worth of sunlight. So it can get pretty dark, and the best way around that is you can get like the happy lights that's kind of similar like the vitamin D. You can take the vitamin D pills. Best thing you can do though is plan some kind of vacation in a warm, sunny place during the winter months. That's really what's going to keep you going, because there's a big lull between Christmas that everyone's looking forward to and springtime when it's summer. So you got to plan something during that time period that you're going to be looking forward to. And you know what? This is the next thing I'm going to give you. So bonus point here, point 6, mosquitoes. I've not really run into a whole lot of them, to be honest, but people are always complaining about them. So I'm just going to throw that on here also and jump onto the bandwagon. So these are my top tips I would give you if you're looking at moving up here to Alaska. I'm sure there's a lot more. If you have any specific questions, do make sure you reach out to me through my Facebook page. The link for that is going to be in the description down below. But I hope this was useful, and see you next time.